We're ready to give you a preview of the best position groups this fall. We hope you're ready to agree with us or argue with us.
Welcome back to First and Short, your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. I'm Aaron, and I'm here with my co-host Mashfik, and we have a lot to talk about today. But before we get started, please subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, folks, if you're looking for our Sunday episode, that did not happen.
I was down bad. The blame is on me. I sound a little crazy right now. Somehow I've come back from the dead, but on Sunday I was not feeling it. Aaron, we put the baby in daycare. It spreads. All that stuff spreads.
Good to know. But hey,
Yeah.
We're back. We're going to keep it rolling, and we're going to try to, keep it going for you guys and give you a good episode for Thursday. With that being said, on the agenda for today, we are going to talk about some of the best position groups, this upcoming season. And we're going to give report cards for the teams LSU and Texas Tech. We're going to talk about, what they did well this year in the 2025 season. Going into more detail on the best position groups of this upcoming season. Today, we're hoping to get some excitement going for the fall, right? We're hoping that the information we share today will allow you to have some good ammo to win arguments with your friends in regards to who's wide receiver U, who's RBU, or even who's DBU. So we're going to go through some of the categories we have here today, and we'll each share what team we think is going to be the U of their position that we're respective to what we're talking to. So Mash, I'll let you kick it off. Who's
All
your
right, cool.
LB? Yeah.
So for linebacker U, I'm going to start with the Georgia Bulldogs. Even with CJ Allen, he finished up his last year. Oh, by the way, before we get into this, the way we each tried to kind of build the criteria for how do we consider each school, each team, the best version of that position group, we took into account overall talent ranking, right? We're considering the blue chip ratio of players in that position. We're talking about returning production, how much production has seen action and is coming back. And with that, how did they kind of do in the 24-25 season, right? So we're taking all of that into account. With that being said, the Georgia Bulldogs, they are my linebacker university. So CJ Allen did leave. He was a big part of the production for the Georgia Bulldogs this last year. But Kirby Smart's, reloading philosophy, it keeps them on the podium here. Linebackers are a position of need, of focus for all of the Kirby Smart-led Georgia defenses. So these are one of the Georgia Bulldogs are one of the few schools that can lose one or two first rounders and still have a multi-year starter returning, right? So a true freshman this year, in terms of overall talent coming into the fall, they have 5-star Zayden Walker. He really came onto the scene this last year, and their depth chart is going to have a collection of future NFL starters. Not to mention, the unit's really going to be anchored by Raylan Wilson. He announced that he's coming back for his senior season, and he was really the workhorse for this team. He had, I think, 74 tackles, 22 QB pressures. He is going to be the quarterback of the 2026 linebacker room, but really even the whole defense. And I know this is going to carry over because this last year, running, just stopping the play, like before he can hit the secondary, that was a main goal for the Georgia Bulldogs. And Wilson, Raylan Wilson, he was an engine for that 2025 unit that won the SEC championship. So he had, 5 tackles and 1 tackles for loss in that SEC championship game against Alabama. He showed that he can step in and handle the biggest stage without the senior stars once they got hurt. So, Aaron, that is my choice for linebacker university. Who do you choose?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go up north a little bit. So I'm gonna go to Ohio State. They're in the number 1 spot for me is because they managed to retain that anchor they had on defense, right? Like that statistically, they were top of the charts in every defensive statistic that you can think of. And that's due to not only, the defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, but it's due to that linebacker core they had. You had guys like, you know, um, Averill Reese and Sony Styles, right? Guys who really led the team and or were just ball hawking linebackers all over the field last year. Um, you know, although they were starters mostly, leading the team, that their backups, who are going to be the starters this year, I think their names are TJ Alford and Garrett Stover. Like those guys, and Peyton Pierce. Those guys are going to be guys who are going to be able to step up more and step into that starting role. Um, Not only the backups that are going to see more production this year, but they were also to sign the number one ranked linebacker in the 2026 class, Sincere Johnson, right? Um, he joins the room with, all these blue chips and high rated guys. I think he'll fit in nicely and he'll be able to see the rotation a little bit. You mentioned it earlier. It's all about stopping the run before it gets to the second level. I think this team is really good at that, but I think they're also really good at staying disciplined and not letting misdirection, get them out of position. So I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to seeing if this Ohio State defense can maintain this level of play and just reach those astronomical numbers of limiting teams to scoring.
for sure. Yeah, that Ohio State, that's a good choice. That was my second choice for linebacker university.
Mm,
But I could see why you would choose them as the best. No problem
right.
with me there. Let's move on to running back university. I'll let you go. I'll let you go first this time, Aaron.
Yep, yep. So I'm gonna have to go with the Georgia Bulldogs here. You know, Georgia traditionally has been known as, a team that's going to run first, pass second. And after somewhat of a disappointing 2024 regular season, I think we saw that running game production really, really pick up. And that's thanks to, Nate Frazier. He was a freshman. Now he was a sophomore in the 2025 season. Him really picking it up and getting help from running backs, Chauncey Bowens, right? Those two, along with Gunnar Stockton's ability to be mobile and dual threat really opened up the run game for them. So having both of those guys return is going to be massive for next season. But they also made some really good pickups to really add some depth in the running back room. We saw the loss of Cash Jones. They got incoming freshman Jay Lamar. He should really add some value to that running back room. And they picked up the transfer from the University of Kentucky, Dante Dowdle, right? We know statistically it wasn't like an absolutely great season, but it was because he was playing elite, very elite SEC defenses all year. So it'll be good to see him, play on a team that's pretty mature. He won't have to carry the full load by himself, and maybe they'll be able to be a two-headed or three-headed horse next year. Um, who's your pick for RBU?
So I feel like Georgia definitely has a good run by committee room.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely probably one of the best in the nation. In my opinion, the I'm gonna go with a team that just has the best running back. They may not do it by committee, but most of the time these days, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to running the ball, it's always when it's the workhorse who's able to get into a lather, who's able to just shoot off a couple hundred yards a game, that type of thing, right? And so with Jeremiah Love gone, that's going to be Ahmad Hardy at Missouri this year. He is the nation's leading returning rusher. Last year, he had 1,649 yards, and you could say, he might be in the Heisman conversation. He's arguably the best returning player, offensive player in college football, period. So, yeah, I'm going to give RBU to the Missouri Tigers. And they do have the depth to kind of support him as well. So I will say, like, while Missouri doesn't have the room full of five stars like Georgia does or Ohio State does, they have turned into a developmental, powerhouse. They have, if we're looking at statistics, an 80% hit rate on developing 3 and 4 star backs into elite producers for the team. So with that, Ahmad Hardy is that crown jewel. In 2025, last year, he was a Doak Walker finalist. and he led the SEC with the rushing yards that I mentioned, and also 16 touchdowns to go along with that. I think rushing will be the identity of it was their identity last year. I think it will be their identity next year, and he will only come into the light even more as he's approaching probably his last season. And I think they're going to try to feature him a lot more as he's looking forward to the NFL. We're going to be talking a lot about Ahmed Hardy and how good Missouri likes to run the ball. So Missouri right now, they are my RBU.
Okay. Absolutely, absolutely.
What's next on the list?
Next on the list is going to be wide receiver U. A lot of teams to choose from. I feel like the college football game itself is turning to a more explosive pass first type of game where we're going to see a lot of high scoring. So I'll let you lead it. Who's your wide receiver U?
I'm gonna go with the easy answer here. I think that's the Ohio State Buckeyes. Even though they lost their wide receivers coach, their co-offensive coordinator, I think, and even with them losing Carnell Tate, first down merchant, with him going to the NFL, the Buckeyes are, in my opinion, the undisputed number one team in this department. They return the most dominant individual in the sport right now, Jeremiah Smith, and have even backfilled the room with the highest rated recruit in the 2026 class, right? So just specifically talking about this wide receiver room, it's almost practically a five-star exclusive club, right? So Chris Henry Jr., he's a true freshman. He's coming in. He was the number one wide receiver in the 2026 class. He's joining a room where depth players like Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter were also top 10 recruits, and they're in waiting for their turn to hit the field. Uh, we can talk about Jeremiah Smith all day. Last year he had 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. This is his last. I mean, this is probably his last year. So he will be featured a lot. Try to get his draft stock up, and just looking to what they did last year, trying to leverage that. In 2025, Ohio State, they led the Big Ten in nearly every passing category, and Jeremiah Smith alone accounted for 35% of the teams receiving touchdowns. So just like I'll talk about Ahmad Hardy at Missouri, um, the featured player ends up being the wide receiver, like the university, the best position group. I think Jeremiah Smith is the tent pole in that room for that role, or for that position. I mean,
Nice, nice.
what
Yeah,
you got?
no, I think that pretty much represents, who we saw be the wide receiver U now and could potentially be the wide receiver U of the future. I look solely on who's going to be the wide receiver U based on the potential that it could be or could have in 2026. And that for me is going to be the Texas Longhorns. So, they have that pro style offensive room built that really did a good job of surviving the draft this year, better than most, right? They could have lost a lot of elite players, but they kept most of their efficient playmakers. They lost some in the portal, but they really kept their stars on campus, right? So overall, you got, you know, um, Ryan Wingo, the 5-star. He's staying. He's your most efficient receiver. Arch is finding his rhythm to get his targets going, right? And then you make a crazy pickup in the 2025 transfer portal cycle. You pick up Cam Coleman, a receiver coming from Auburn who, didn't have the best team around him, but just found a way to make so much production and affect the game so much just one on one by himself, right? So you got one guy on one side, one on the other. I mean, any either one is a deep threat if they're guarded one on one on the field, right? In terms of what we've seen Wingo do in his 2026 production, um, he had 54 catches for 134 yards and 7 touchdowns. If you pair that with Cam Coleman, it's going to be a strong start for the Longhorns in Austin, right? They were already, finishing the 2025 season with a top 10 passing attack, and it's because of Wingo's efficiency, right? He averaged like 15 yards per catch. So um, I'm looking for them to have a really, really impactful year, and it's because of those two guys. But I haven't even mentioned, that they have a 5-star coming in from the 2026 recruiting class. They got Jermaine Bishop coming, so they're continuing to build on what they are building into a win now culture, right? So they're preparing to win now, but they're also preparing for the future as well. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do.
So in terms of wide receiver, I picked Ohio State, you picked Texas. The nice thing is on September 12th of this fall, they'll play each other, and we'll get to see
Mhm.
who's running laps around the other team. So
Yep,
that'll be one of the more exciting games this fall for sure.
exactly.
Um, cool, yeah, sounds good. Let's move into defensive back university DBU, right? I will say, yeah, this one was probably a harder one for me to pick, but I'm gonna go with Alabama here, and this one is almost feels a little ironic just because Kalen DeBoer is known for his offense, but he has done a really good job of not only building one of the best secondaries in the SEC, he kept it intact. Between last season and this season, so um, overall, I would say Alabama's room is almost a track team in pads. They have so much speed. They looking forward to the future. They signed Jariah Edwards. He's the number one safety in the 2026 class. So the secondary is in good hands moving forward as well. But in terms of returning production, people that we have seen be lights out in the secondary. This is why they are number one to me. How much they're returning. They're returning Zabian Brown and Dijon Lee. Dijon Lee was starting as a true freshman. Zabian Brown, he was the one with all the pick sixes this year. He had one against Tennessee, one against Oklahoma, I think. So this guy is special. And then they're also keeping Keon Saab and Bray Hubbard. So everyone wants to come back and play at least one more year, and that returning production is really for me what's keeping them in that DBU spot.
Mhm,
Um, just looking back at their last year's performance, this secondary unit it allowed the lowest completion percentage in the SEC. Zabian Brown, he emerged really as that true shutdown corner. He finished the year with 3 interceptions. Two of them I saw go for pick sixes and 11 pass breakups. So he is quite often, frequently left on an island against whatever your team is best wide receiver. All of that put together, they're definitely DBU for me.
yep, yep. Can't disagree there. So I got my answer. I think I'm gonna go with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish for DBU. Marcus Freeman and his defense, they've really become a factory of producing these technical DBs, right? Um, Despite losing Morrison, the Irish return a unit that's statistically number one in pass defense for much of 2025, right? We know they're notoriously known for having that slow start, but finding a way to bounce back for the other 10 games of their season. And I think it's because of how well this defense adjusted and anchored their way through most of the season. Um, the Irish, they're built on the Freeman 2023 class, which is mostly that defense. That it features Leonard Moore, who many scouts consider, he's one of the best pure cover corners returning in college football in 2026. On the other side, at the other corner position, you got Christian Gray, right? So both are back. Both have that experience that you need at corner to play these high games, right? Um, Looking at their schedule next year, though, I think these guys will just be getting their reps, shutting down defenses, and getting ready for what I think will be a college football playoff run. So I'm excited to see how well or how well statistically this defense will perform because of these guys.
You think they're pissed off they didn't play in the playoffs this year?
Oh, that chip is going to be on their shoulder the whole year next year. I'm sure they're going to make a statement, even on the teams who aren't competition, right? Like the cupcake schools. So
Leave no room for doubt.
exactly.
Leave no room for doubt except for losing the games that you need to win. All right, cool. Appreciate you going through that exercise with me, Aaron. We've been getting a lot of views. We'll move on here. We've been getting a lot of views on our report card series. So we just want to cover a couple more teams um, that we think deserve a little feedback, a little post-season grading, right? And so with that, I think we're going to start with LSU for tonight. And starting with the 2025 LSU season, it was a roller coaster if I've ever seen one. It ultimately flew off the tracks, leading to one of the more shocking coaching changes of the year. Although not too many can beat the Penn State one, but this one was up there. This one was up there. They had a top 5 start. The Tigers, they later cratered in October, and it led to obviously a leadership change that completely reset the program heading into next year, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about this team's report card, and we'll start with their record, right? So record-wise, this was a national champion contender, at least a playoff contender, a team that was supposed to have high chance of making it to the SEC game. So somewhere between 10 and 11 wins. They entered the season ranked number 9, and they climbed all the way to number 3. You know, they beat Clemson early on in the year. They were like I said, viewed as a primary challenger for the SEC game. They ended the season 7-6, 3-5 in the SEC. Complete disaster, right? LSU, they ended up losing 6 of their last final games, including a 0-6 record against ranked opponents. So not too good in the Bayou in that regard. To go from a top 3 ranking to a 7-loss season, you know, including the bowl, it's a historic collapse. And obviously we saw a lot of change. And so I'm going to give them an F on this one, expected versus actual record. I'm going to go ahead and grade them that way. Yeah.
I have to agree there. Yeah, and I mean, it's a good segue into, one of the main factors in that, and that's probably going to be coaching, right? The Brian Kelly era, it came to an end this season, right? After a 5-3 start that included back-to-back losses to Vanderbilt and Texas A&M, LSU made a stunning decision to, fire Brian Kelly on October 27th. In that limbo of them trying to find another coach, they had an interim period where Frank Wilson, he took over the remainder of the season, managing a 2-3 finish. So not much better, kind of disappointing. The only bright spot in the coaching is, the hiring of Lane Kiffin. So while that coaching grade is low and we're going to give it, a D minus, they're going to earn another grade we'll talk about later as, they picked up one of the hottest coaches in college football. So again, D minus for performance this year, but definitely more to say on the future.
Gotcha. Got you. Yeah. So let's continue into offense and defense. Offense wise, it was a unit that was supposed to be pretty explosive under Garrett Nussmeier, but what ended up happening was a very incredibly inconsistent one. They averaged just 22.8 points per game, which put them over 100 nationally. Nussmeier did struggle with injuries pretty early on in the season that they, tried to keep hitting, and he was pretty much benched late in the season for Michael Van Buren. So something to look forward to for next season. Defense, ironically, the defense, which was a weakness in 2024, the pendulum kind of swung the other way. It was the only thing that was keeping them in games. They ranked 23rd nationally in scoring defense, a little bit under 20 points. And but they're often left on the field too long by a stagnant offense. So, obviously they're going to get tired and give up points eventually. So all in all together, offense, I give like a D plus, defense like a B. Overall, I think that lands them somewhere in the C minus range.
Fair. Yep. Can't disagree there. Okay, so we're going to move on to best win and worst loss of the season, right? So they're going to get a C plus here. The reason they're going to get a C plus is because, their best win was that opening, game against Clemson. It was a determinant of who was the real Death Valley, right? So they won there 17-10 against, at the time, number 4 Clemson. And it was a defensive masterclass that convinced everyone that LSU might be a national contender. It was the only time all season that they beat a team that finished with a winning record. So that was pretty much the high point of the season for them. Worst loss has to be that loss 31-24 against Vanderbilt. It was the beginning of the end for Brian Kelly. That's when it all kind of toppled for him. Losing to 17th ranked Vandy while LSU's ranked number 10 was a moment, the fan base and the administration kind of turned on their head coach and wanted to change. So again, they're going to get a C plus there. Yeah.
The crazy thing about that win against Clemson was like that was their first time winning a home winning a season opener in like 5 or 6 years,
Yep.
and then the season went off the rail like that. So that was definitely a great win, not a great
Mhm.
season. All right, cool. So let's talk about portal and preparation for the future. They did pretty good here. If 2025 season failure, sure. 2026 preparation has been a masterclass so far. Lane Kiffin, the portal king, if you want to call him that, he's already signed over 40 transfers for the 2026 season. If you want to if you want to designate some crown jewels, they landed the number one overall portal prospect, right? Sam Levitt, quarterback out of Arizona State. Lots of talent and lots of experience. Experience is what we see a lot of coaches these days want over talent. If you just if you have more years and you're older, you're a lot of time you're just gonna cook the other teams that you're playing. They also landed 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton out of Colorado. That's going to help rebuild that offensive line, which was anemic this year. So definitely hitting points of concern early across the board. Recruiting wise, they have they have the number one ranked transfer class and a top 5 high school class. So um, he's getting he's able to talk the football talk that he needs to in order to get the transfers to come in. He also has the backing of the Bayou, Baton Rouge natives to get all the Louisiana high school players and all that sort of stuff. So I think he's going to do great there. We're going to give this category an A plus. And look at the whole, uh, if we look at the whole, final grade for the 2025 season, we're going to go with C minus for that one. I was just making sure we could see it here, but 2025 season C minus. Pretty much, I mean, you didn't meet your expectations. They were pretty high. But you'll get them next year. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. Alrighty. So moving on to our next team, we're going to talk about the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And man, what a season for your dark horse, right, Mash? I mean, you know, Texas Tech notoriously known for a team that scores a lot but can still lose like 45 to 38 or something. They finally turned it around. They had a defensive fortress, and they were a team that a lot of people were scared to play when it was time to play them in the season, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, let's dive into their expected versus actual record. Um, Without a doubt, they'll get an A plus here from us. They were expected to go 8-4 or 9-3. Most experts saw them as a top 25 team, but still a tier below. The Big 12's heavy hitters like Utah or Kansas State. They actually finished this season 12-2, and they were 8-1 in the Big 12. So in my opinion, this is not even my opinion. Statistically, this is one of the school's best seasons in school history. Um, they set a program record with 12 wins, won their first ever Big 12 championship, and earned a first round bye in the college football playoff. So, outstanding year. They definitely took it to another level of being elite, and I don't think they're gonna slow down any with their transfer portal recruiting, but they're gonna get an A plus here for record.
Cool. Guess what? They're gonna get an A plus for coaching from me as well. Joey McGuire, he's been at Texas Tech for a while, but I think he's officially reached statue status in Lubbock, Texas. In his 4 seasons there, he's doing what Mike Leach and Cliff Kingsbury just couldn't, right? Bringing home conference titles, bringing home some pride and joy into that town within Texas. So I think the best coaching hiring that he did, defensive coordinator Sheil Wood, completely transformed the identity of the program.
Mhm.
And he also navigated a pretty crazy quarterback carousel with Baron Morton and Will Hammond, going through injuries at different times, but still each one able to come in and just take over seamlessly. So that was all great. Texas Tech, they also went 6-1 in games decided by 10 points or less. That's a testament to the brand and toughness, the culture that McGuire has preached since day one.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, let's get into their defense and offense. So let's start with the offense. Offense B plus. Running, kind of a run and gun scheme under Mark Leftwich, right? They were very efficient and explosive. They averaged 37.3 points a game, so that's seventh nationally. Amazing. They had guys like Cameron Dickey. He was a revelation, providing physical ground game. That Texas Tech has kind of lacked in the past couple of years, right? And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to get an A+ here. This is really where the magic happened for me. They were the number 2 scoring defense in the nation, scoring defense in the nation. They only allowed 12.2 points per game on average.
Very good.
Really, really good statistics. The individual star we're going to have to call out, Jacob Rodriguez, best player in college football. You probably didn't talk about enough or hear about enough. He won the Nagurski, Butkus, and Lombardi Trophy. So a clean sweep of major defensive awards. And hey, get this. I was reading up on him earlier. I think he came into college as a quarterback at the University of Virginia and then decided to make the position switch. Gained a
Wow.
lot of weight to be able to take on the
The
beating
hits.
that linebackers do. And just really has been just a crazy leader for this defense. So yeah,
Did,
again, they're going to get an A- overall for offensive defense, but that defense, man, they played their
did
hearts out this
yeah, did not know that about him. Very cool.
year.
Let's talk about their best win and their worst loss. Their best win has to be that Big 12 championship game. Excuse me, Big 12 championship game against BYU. Not because it was, it was a physical dismantling of what of the second place team in your conference. Tech, they held the high powered BYU offense to a single touchdown and dominated the trenches from beginning to end. So that was the most dominant performance of the season, and that's going to be their best win. Period. So worst loss though. 4-point loss, 26-22 against Arizona State. That was their only regular season blemish. It was, a trap game, you could say, where the offense, they just stalled in the red zone. And it kind of reminded everyone that, this team is, yeah, they got Rodriguez. They got 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks that can go in at any time, but these guys are still human. The Orange Bowl loss to Oregon was 23-0. So that one is kind of high on the worst loss list. But losing to the number 1 team in the playoff quarterfinal, I think, is less bad than losing to Arizona State, who wasn't that good this year.
Yep,
Yep.
that is fair.
So I think we'll give them. What do we give them here? I got to take a look at our. We give them an A- on this one.
Yep, A- there. And then let's talk about how well they prepare for the future, right? So I don't think this team is going to be like a one season, one hit wonder type of team. They're currently ranked in the top 10 in the 2026 portal class. So I think they're going to be here to stay with terms of producing at this high level, right? You know that we have Baron Morton graduating, but they landed Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. He was a great dual threat guy who threw for over 2,800 yards and 27 touchdowns last season. So I don't think that offensive explosion is going to slow down. In terms of reloading that front, despite losing David Bailey, they landed Trey White and Mateen Ibuaroga, if I'm saying that correctly. So they're going to ensure that pass rush remains elite. In terms of preparing for the future, they're going to get an A here.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that gives them a final grade of an A for the season, which I think is very fair. And
Mm.
yeah, they had their best season ever. So A is very fair there.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that is everything that we had for today. We appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to go get some tea and some rest. And hope you guys enjoy this episode, enjoy your weekend, and we will be back on Sunday for sure.
All right.